So let's do some bunker shading. There's quite a few different ways to do this. I'm going to create a separate bunker overlay so the sand color and the shading doesn't bleed out in the course. But there are a lot of different ways that you can do this. And maybe I'll make at some point another bunker shading video with some other techniques. But this is the one I think is the simplest and will probably work the best for you. So let's go into Photoshop, and I've got my major groups, my folders here, my Inkscape shapes, which you should be intimately familiar with all of my Inkscape shapes, and specifically I've got my bunkers in here. Where is it? Bunkers right here. And you can see that I created a lot more bunkers than are actually on this course. And Inkscape already has like a little bit of a yellow tint to it. So um, let's close this up, and we're going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this bunkers. This is going to contain all my bunker information, if I spell bunkers correctly. And underneath bunkers, let's create a new layer called bunker shading. And what the bunker shading is going to do is it's going to give our bunkers a little bit more depth, because around the edges, we're going to make them darker to make it look like there's some shadows. And this is pretty simple to do. So if we want to create dark shadows, what we're going to do is we're going to make this is more like a GFR, except it's our sand bunker GFR, but we're going to make this one completely blank. So if we come up over here to edit, fill, and we select our color here, and we make this black, hit OK, and now we've got this black layer, and you can see that it is 100% black. So let's come back up here to our Inkscape shapes. Let's go to our bunkers. Let's go to our magic wand tool and select all of our bunkers. And now you can see when I do that, I've got all of my bunkers selected, and I can approach this a couple different ways. So the one that I probably well, let's do one first, then I'll show you the other one, which is come down here back to bunker shading. And let's turn off my Inkscape shape now because I got this selected. Now what I can do here is um, what I want to try to do is shade just the outside of here. Okay, so where the bunker lip is, give that a little bit of shading. So how I'm going to do this is, first of all, I'm going to have to inverse this because I only want the area outside. So let me do select, inverse. And then when you do that, it's hard to tell, but now I have all the areas but the bunker selected. And then again, let me do the modify, expand, and I'm going to push this in, let's say 5 pixels. So I just push this in. I think I'm going to need it more than that actually. Select, modify, expand. Let me push another. So I already did 5. Let me do 2 more. All right. And now I'm going to feather that as well. Modify, feather. So I did 5 plus 2. So that's going to be 7. Let me feather that in 5. Now, if I come down here into my bunker shading, do layer, layer mask, reveal selection. You can see now that I've pushed that, and I'm seeing my satellite through here, so let's go down and get rid of my overhead images. I've pushed that in there, so if I turn my bunkers back on here and make them a little bit change the opacity down. What did I do? Oh, I got the long layer selected here. Let me go to my bunkers here, change this down. It's hard to see. Let me change this opacity too. And let me put this one back up. This might look better so you guys can see. Still hard to see. The bottom line is here is you can start to see it here. You can start to see that shading and how it's being impacted by my bunkers. That shading's being pushed there, you can see it. So now I'm going to have this like shaded color around the outside of my bunkers. So now what I would need to do is let me turn off my Inkscape shapes. And we definitely don't want this at like 100%. Actually, I'm going to turn this up to 100 and then this specific layer down. And a good place to start, again, I think is like 15, maybe 26 here. And then just like always, we're going to export this and then import it as our bunker overlay. Now, another thing that we can do here is I could add another, if let's say you can even add a little bit more depth, but this takes a little bit more time and work, is I can add another layer to my bunkers, okay? That one's called bunker shading. Let's call this one directional shading. And I'm also going to make that layer fill it with, that should be all black. So now I have another black one. May come back up here to my bunkers again, make this visible. And I'm also going to, actually I don't even need to do the selection like this. I just need to kind of know, yeah, I'm going to do a selection here. Let me do magic wand tool, select this guy. All right, I'm going to leave it the way it is. I'm going to come down to this directional shading and I'm going to add a mask, except I'm going to hide all. So you can now see that I've hidden everything. Now if I change this to white, and now I come back here to my brush tool, and I can play with that. Size looks pretty good. I'm going to hold down Alt, right mouse, and I'm going to make this, I'm going to drag down, up. I'm going to make the hardness, I'm going to make it soft. And now if I visit every bunker I have, and that's why I said this could take a while, and I just shade like the sides, certain sides, like if I shade here and here and here, it's going to give more shadowing from that side. But I have to do that everywhere. Shadow here. If I just do a little bit more shadowing on this side of the bunker instead, there it is again, just do this side and this one. So I'm doing like the north, I guess you call it the northeast corner of every bunker here. It's going to give a lot more depth when you see these. And I'm going to zoom out here so I can figure out which ones I did, because I don't want to spend all my time doing all these. See, these are kind of like the ones on the north side of the course here. I'll do it here as well. Let me zoom in so I can see. And then you guys should have watched the export tutorial from now. I'm just going to, what you see is what you get as far as exporting. I'm going to hide my Inkscape shapes. If I do a Control D, and then, I don't want that quite, so I'm going to lower the opacity down just a tad. There we go. And then I'm going to export this, File, Export, and then I'm going to bring it into Unity. I'll show you what that looks like. Actually, I will show you what this, because I'm exporting a separate overlay, although we did cover this before. Export, export as. Remember, we want to do 8192, but we do not want to overwrite our other Inkscape overlays. I can't see the export button at the bottom. There it is. And I'm going to do, I created this other one called Rock Creek Satellite Sand. I don't want to overwrite the other one I did. I'm just going to call this one Sand 2. And then it exports, and then we can go take a look in Unity. So here's my sand inside of Unity, and I think I was playing with this one right here. I just changed one of them. I didn't change them all for my testing purposes. So I'm going to create this one. I created Sand 2. And then Sand 2, you can see I have, let's see here, my diffuse texture is this Sand 3 detail that I found. Looks like I got the wrong diffuse in there though, but you'll see here in a second what I mean by all this. And then I have my satellite texture chosen. I can change to make these darker or lighter. Let me make this a little bit lighter. So you can see a little bit of the shadowing here. Let me go into Photoshop quick. Let me just make sure I got the right one selected here. I select, yep, that's Sand 2, the one I just created. Let me go back into Photoshop. Let me just make these a little bit darker. Change this to like, make it a lot darker, almost too much. So that's 72%, 65%. File, export, export as. Sand 2. And once that's done, I can go into Unity and it'll update. You can see how much darker that got. That's not too shabby. Um, but you can see that this, because I have a specific overlay for my sand, even though this is really dark, you don't see it because it stops right here. So the dark areas are hidden. Um, but you can also change the coloring here to get the look you're looking for. If I change it all up here, it looks like very white sand. I like to give it almost like a brownish color to it. So it looks pretty good. It's hard to see the directional sand. It all looks pretty even, so I might have to go in there and either darken the directional or just adjust a little bit. But you can see the idea here is now I have a lot more depth to my sand. All right, when I come in here, even looks like that's almost like a water line in here, which is kind of a cool effect. But you get the idea. So that's shading your bunkers.